Yes, people, another Wednesday evening. Welcome to Man Them Chat. Tonight, we've got a very special guest in the house this evening. We've got Myrna Loy, host of BlackBright News YouTube channel, DJ, and author of the book Lovers Rock More Than a Dance Floor, a book what I found very good. Welcome to Man Them Chat, Myrna.
Welcome.
Greetings, Myrna.
Greetings, everyone.
Good to see you, Lady Loy.
Yes, greetings.
Enough respect.
So Myrna, we'll just probably take it from the beginning, you know?
Okay.
A little bit about your background, some of the things you're up to, you know, in your own time.
Okay, born in the UK of Jamaican parents. I've lived in the United States for about 10 years. I lived in Angola for a year. I was on a peacekeeping mission. And I came to Luton. I'm originally from London. So I came to Luton in 2000, settled in Luton for about 6.5 years. And now I live in Dunstable. I'm a DJ, I'm an author, like you said. I've got quite a few strings to my bow. I'm a vlogger, or what they call a social influencer these days. And yeah, that's about it.
Okay, busy.
Busy.
I had a look at your YouTube channel, and it's quite interesting still. They're short but sweet videos, but they're to the point.
Yeah, I started that YouTube channel when the Jamaicans were being deported. I'm focusing on Jamaicans only because my background is Jamaican. And they was publicizing about Jamaicans getting deported, and a lot of them didn't know their rights. They didn't know, it was a lot of the Windrush people. And so because I felt as though they were vulnerable, I decided to research, and I had to put up a video to help them. And it started from there. So I'm kind of motivated, I think, by people who are less fortunate than myself, less literate, and people who just need advice. I kind of simplify legislation. If there's any news that's being swept under the carpet, I bring it to the fore. Mostly things that can help the regular John Joe.
Yeah, because I saw the Jamaican, how is it going to affect us when Jamaica goes to the Republic?
Yeah, because a lot of people, they won't understand that. I mean, it's great being a republic, and what I say is not necessarily how it will go, but it's just sometimes I give some thought to these things. And when you do think of what happened when Jamaica went independent, and how they started changing legislation, and that was why the Windrush happened, really, because all those people post Windrush didn't have the same privileges as if Jamaica was still dependent on the United Kingdom. So because they decided to go independent, it's almost like the Brits are punishing them. So it's more or less, okay, you get on with it. And so people didn't realize that they would lose certain privileges. So what I'm saying is that when we go republic, unless we maintain links with the Commonwealth, we could be cutting our nose to spite.
Right. Is that the same thing you were saying Barbados has done?
Yeah, exactly. Well, Barbados has already gone republic, but they've maintained links with the Commonwealth. So they're smart, and I'm just hoping that Jamaica does the same thing.
Okay. And you did mention the Windrush. That's what actually started you doing your channel.
Yeah, that's what started it, because I think because I'm born in the UK, and a lot of us who are born in the UK, we don't understand the challenges that people have, the foreign nationals have, people who were not born in the UK, who came into the UK, we don't understand their challenges. And what happens is they don't have the same rights even if they were here from they were young children, as those who were born in the UK. And those that came here as young children, they thought that they had automatic rights, which they did when they started.
Yeah.
Like I said, when Jamaica went independent and a lot of the Caribbean went independent, they lost a lot of those rights. And so they were in a country where now they're having to prove that they belong here.
Mm.
Yeah. Was your parents affected by the Windrush at all?
I was quite fortunate. My mum is quite astute. She's very organized. She's passed now. She passed 2 years ago, but she was very organized. And
Sorry to hear
also, I think when all those things were happening, she just decided to go to Spain. It was in the 80s. But if she hadn't gone to Spain and didn't get her passport then, she could have been a victim of the Windrush situation. But it was the fact that she was going to Spain with some friends, just off the cuff. She applied for her passport and it was very difficult, but she got it. And so she wasn't affected, but she wouldn't have had all those documents, I don't think. She would have had some, but not all.
Yeah. It's the same like my mum, isn't it? My mum was keen to dig off a British passport, you know. She was well keen, man. And when she got it, man, she went to the moon, man. Yeah, man. Wow, my blue book.
Yeah, yeah.
Man, she'd dig off that from, you know, and she wanted that, but she wasn't really affected either. But my brother, one of my younger brothers, was. So it's, you know, and some
So
of
they
my
do
cousins.
say the passport is a privilege. It still doesn't give us. We're not protected that much, even though I'm born here, because I'm British by descent. I'm still as vulnerable to be booted out if I commit a crime, even though I don't live in Jamaica or don't have anybody there.
Yeah.
I could be booted out as well. So as long as you're not British, like your grandmother is born here, your great grandparents are born here, those are the only people who have protection. But anybody who is British by descent, we're just as vulnerable. I don't think it will ever come to that, but we're just as vulnerable if they really want to get nasty.
Is it Pretty Patel, the Pretty Patel law, what she was trying to pass?
That's what I was going to say. The clause 9, is that because of that, or is it just been like that from day dot?
Are you talking about the border? The border law?
Yeah.
No, this is because of the hostile environment. This is Theresa May's bill. That's why it all started, all of this controversy.
I know she pushed it or started it when she was.
That's what really got the ball rolling, and that's when people started really suffering. Because remember, when the hostile environment came out, if you went to, the gatekeepers were employers, they were banks, the DVLA, landlords, and if you couldn't show that you had a valid passport, you couldn't get a room, you couldn't open up a bank account. And you couldn't get health service. So that's what really started it off.
But apparently these laws was brought in about 100 years ago.
I think it's more than 100 years ago, but they weren't implemented. Yeah, I think it was under the Aliens Act or something. So it's not that they didn't exist before, but they were ignored. And now they're kind of reviving it.
Yeah.
So they were docile. Those laws were docile for a while until they needed it. Yeah, until they needed it. That's the thing with these laws and legislations. They're put in place many years before they're actually needed.
Yeah, exactly.
They already have the agenda or the narrative in their mind of what they're going to do and how they're going to maintain this thing.
Yeah, I mean, even although those coronavirus restrictions, they haven't used them yet, but they're in place. They've been all put in place in 2020. So when they need it, maybe in the next year or 2 years or 3 years, they could just,
Interesting.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any questions for Lady Loy?
I have.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. So, man, I got your book. I read your book. I found it really interesting, actually. It's like you packed in a lot in your life. Yeah. Yeah, lots of traveling and stuff, you know. How come you ended up in America then?
So I ended up in America because I was in a precarious situation. So it was like an escape, you know, like when you just want to start over.
Yeah.
So I went to America, and I was one of those people who thought America was, you know, you just could go there and live. I didn't know anything about visas. I didn't know anything about green cards. I thought I could just go over there and live. But what I found out was that I had family over there. I had sisters over there. My biological father was there. And so I got hold of one of my sisters who allowed me to work, and because she ran a day nursery, but then I could only do it for a little while. And then someone said to me, look, you know, if you've got a valid passport, you can go and join the UN. So I thought, oh, really? So I trotted off down to New York in one of my lunch breaks, and they said, we've just lifted the restrictions from staff coming from Namibia, and we have a couple of posts available. So I went for an interview there and then. I got the job, but they started off on 3 months contracts, and then it went to 6 months contracts. And then after a couple of years, I got a permanent contract. And once you get a permanent contract, you're more or less equivalent to an American citizen. You don't need a green card. I had diplomatic immunity. I could come and go. And yeah, it was pretty good. It was pretty cool.
So how long was you out in America for?
10 years.
10 years.
Yeah.
What are you saying? You work for the UN, United Nations?
Yeah.
I went to Africa.
I went to Africa on a peacekeeping mission.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
How was that?
Well, it got me used to spiders for a little while. And I went in a helicopter. I was actually on the board of inquiry, so I was actually investigating local injustices against international civilians. And so I would go out and we'd go to helicopters and we'd interview local people. And yeah, it was quite interesting.
Whereabouts in Africa did you go?
Angola.
Angola.
Mm.
Southeast?
Southeast, so I don't know which part it is.
Oh, okay.
It's run by the Portuguese.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, they speak Spanish over there. No, not Portuguese. What am I talking about? In Spanish.
Seafood Blaps, did you have a question?
Hi, Mona.
Oh, hi.
I last saw you at the Marsh House.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we were going to get into it about the status correction and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I'd like to be in on one of the conversations. Just wondering if you're going to talk about that.
You sound pretty quiet, Blaps.
Oh, yeah, I didn't hear one word. I didn't hear you.
Yeah, you need to speak up.
Is that better?
A little bit.
Microphone wasn't. I was just saying that we were going to talk about correcting your status, but you're busy doing the sales or something at your store.
Correcting the estates, did you say?
Status.
Oh, correcting the status.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Right. So I was wondering if you're going to talk about that today.
No, I don't really know enough about that to talk about it, to be honest.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, no worries. Any other questions?
What is it? What was it? Seafood? The status? I didn't really
Correcting status.
What legal status you mean?
Yeah, I think it's got
status.
something to do with sovereignty or something.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
So
I'm not qualified to really speak about that. I was looking at some of the information that was being put out, but I don't really know much about it.
Yeah.
It does seem quite an intricate thing still, to be honest.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you feel your YouTube channel's doing and stuff? You know, because I find it you're quite up to date, you know, and you kind of on the point when you're discussing things what are like relevant like now. So how do you sort of go about like sourcing your information? And because you do sound quite clued up, you know, you're there talking and it kind of makes sense most of the time. So where do you kind of source your information from and stuff?
Well, what I do, I normally get topics given to me and then I research them, and I kind of research them thoroughly. But I find that, you know, a lot of times with YouTube is that even though I've got 10,000, I think I've got 10,300 subscribers, it's like if you're not talking about hair and beauty and all that kind of stuff, they can kind of restrict who your videos go out to. So sometimes I wish I could help more people with the information, but basically I just research the information. If somebody asks me to talk about something, providing it's not going to put my neck on the chopping block, I'll talk about it, you know, and I'll try to find out as much information I can and deal with it as diplomatically as I can, hoping that the message gets across.
Okay.
Out of everything that you've done, what have you enjoyed the most?
What I've enjoyed the most, I think DJing I enjoy the most. I love music, and I just think as long as I'm playing music, even if it's once a week and there's music in the background, I find it very therapeutic. So I would say DJing.
Cool. Well, how would you be in America? How long was you in there? You said 10 years, yeah?
Yeah.
How do you see, not the state of Black people, but how would you say the community is in America compared to England? The Black community,
it's a hard
from
one
your experience.
It's hard because when I was living in America, I felt accepted, I felt liberated. I felt as though I could be who I wanted to be. I didn't feel restricted. I found my community was my family, so I felt quite safe. I didn't really mix with other people apart from work colleagues and my family. So I found England, it's a bit more, you have to conform a lot. You can't be as liberated. Well, you can't really be yourself. You have to kind of fit this profile. So I find that even though I prefer England and I love living in England because I feel as though, because I'm born here, I know the culture, I know how to navigate the culture. I found that more free living in America, you know, to do with the mind. I didn't encounter any racism while I was there. I didn't encounter violence while I was there. I felt pretty safe while I was there.
I would have thought that would have been the other way around.
Exactly, but it wasn't. Okay, sometimes in England you can feel less safe, but I think it's more because with England it's very, it's a polite culture, but it's a kind of a culture where you know something's going on, but you don't know what it is. Whereas with America, it's more open, it's more transparent.
Right, it's more covert in England.
Yeah, so if they're, that's exactly it.
In America, I think if they don't like you, that you know that they don't like you, they're not hiding it, and that's just that.
Exactly.
And I think even in England, it's one of those ones where most Black guys, even me and my brethren, would say, well, boy, it's not the covert ones that are the problem. No, it's the covert ones that are the problem. The ones that are barefaced racism, you just say, yeah, all right, you know where you stand.
Yeah.
The ones that will smile with you and laugh and joke with you, but then behind your back, he's this and that. Yeah, they're the problem.
And still behind you.
Yeah. So let me say,
yeah. So.
Okay, anybody else?
I wanted to ask you, which one do you think, out of England and America, which one do you think gave you the most opportunities?
Oh, I think definitely America. I mean, America, you feel as though you're being, and your talent is being accepted and acknowledged. In England, you have to fight so hard to find a place. And I don't know what it is, but you just get the feeling, even though they say there's racism in America, you just get the feeling that you're treated equally, providing you've got the skills and you know how to put yourself forward. Whereas in England, no matter how hard you try, but you always feel as though there's something holding you back. You know what I mean? So I would say, in answer to that question, I think America has the most opportunities, gave me the most opportunities.
It's funny you say that, you know, sorry to cut in, but that's what they call the American dream, isn't it? In America, as long as you're willing to work hard, you're supposed to be able to get your dream.
Yeah, and I mean, everywhere has a glass ceiling, but you could achieve a level of comfort, you know, right place, right time. Whereas in England, no matter what you do,
yeah, you're
like,
still not getting.
yeah, you still ain't making it.
Yeah.
Unless a miracle, or unless you inherit some money, or, you know, it's that kind of stuff.
I think I saw in WhatsApp. I think I heard you say. I think I read that somewhere that you were also a singer. Were you a singer?
No, that's not one of my fortes. Definitely not. I wish.
Okay, but you are an author.
I am an author. Yeah.
So what is your book called? What is your book called, by the way?
I was just gonna say.
I've written 7 books.
7, right?
Yeah. So the first book I wrote was The Other Side of Tourism, and that's based on a British person's viewpoint of living in Jamaica and the culture. Because a lot of us, even though we're born in England, when we go to Jamaica, we kind of like to think that we're Jamaican. And I realized that being born in the UK, I was quite snobbish and not Jamaican at all. I mean, I can still relate and, you know, hang and that kind of stuff, but I found that my prejudices came to the fore a lot more. So it's written in a very humorous way, but that was my first book, The Other Side of Tourism. My second book was Poetry's Promise, which is my life in poetry. My third book is Poetry's Teacher, which is my professional life in poetry. My fourth book was Lovers Rock More Than a Dance Floor. That was the summarized version, and then I did a larger version called Lovers Rock More Than a Dance Floor, even more than a dance floor. And I did one called Poetry's Teacher Meets Poetry's Therapist, and that was when my granddaughter died. And it's a poetry book, but it's about all the challenges that people go through and how therapeutic poetry can be. And then I had Spirit of Queens, which is basically, I felt the spirit, it was spirit inspired, and that's why I titled it that. So I think I've covered them all, and they're all available on Amazon.
Oh, yeah. I was about to say. Yeah.
So you're a poet then?
Oh yeah, I was first a poet, then I was a writer. But I'm quite a radical poet.
Are you?
Yeah, I'm quite radical in my poetry, so I don't really go there too tough.
All right, okay. You'll upset people.
I can upset people.
Okay.
Have you got a poem you want to share with us?
I
was going to ask that, but I didn't want to put you on the spot.
Well, I'll do one that I know is quite easy, and that's I work, going berserk, receiving no recognition because of my pigmentation. I am black, that's a fact, and the employers react in a way that is backed by the rest of the whites who love to unite in racism. Materialism, now that is the cause of so many wars that cause us to strive in order to live. But we receive no satisfaction because we're under the man's jurisdiction, receiving no recognition because of our pigmentation. So we work, going berserk, going berserk. That's it.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, you're a poet, yes? Go on. Anybody else? Any other questions?
Okay, the DJ side of things now, because obviously I'm a DJ myself, you know.
DJ to
what
DJ.
What vinyl, CD, or laptop?
Not CDs anymore. I don't play out anymore,
No.
but I'm on the radio. So it's a combination of vinyls, but mostly MP3.
Yeah.
Digital.
But what do you prefer though?
Well, I think when you're entertaining or when you're on the radio show, it's just so much easier. I mean, if you're looking for simplicity, you can do the digital thing, you know, the electronic media, the MP3s. But if you go out, I don't think it's the same vibe when you see people with their computers. You see sound man with their computers, and you know it's attached to a speaker box. I just think it's a cop out. So I prefer, if I was going out, I prefer to play the vinyls. I prefer to be traditional.
Yeah.
So yeah, and so I'm a mixture of both.
Yeah. How many records do you think you've got then?
I don't know, probably about 250 in the attic.
Jeez.
I sold quite a few when I was downsizing, and you know sometimes you wish you hadn't, but yeah, I've got a lot of 12 inches.
Yeah, tell me about it. Yeah.
And mostly lovers rock, but quite a number of soul records, and you know.
Okay, that's your genre, yeah? Soul and lovers rock.
No, actually, my genre on radio is strictly reggae, dancehall, and Studio One, and beat, and that kind of thing.
Okay.
So the first hour on my radio show, I tend to promote new music. So it can be from African music to dancehall. It could be literally anything. International music. Some of the music I play, they don't even sing reggae in English. The only common thread is reggae.
Okay. Say nothing.
What station are you on?
Lovers Rock Radio on Fridays.
Okay.
7 p.m. to 9 p.m.
Yeah. Every Friday.
Every Friday.
Yeah. So do you do that from home, or do you travel into the studio, or?
No, when I was working for Jam Rock Radio, I used to go into the studio. Now I work for Lovers Rock Radio. I do it from home.
Okay. And you were saying that you don't DJ anymore. Is there a reason, or is it just time, or?
I think it's time more than anything else, and prioritizing. I think Friday night is enough for me. I do a couple of hours, I interview, and that kind of satisfies me. And it kind of, you know, like you have work, rest, and play. That is my play. So I allot that time, and you know, I've got time we have time for my partner, time for my family, time for work, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I think people don't realize how much time and energy it takes, you know, to run a sound system, to have a residency in clubs, to play, and that it is quite time consuming.
It's very time consuming. I mean, even like preparing for my show, I start off on Monday to get it ready for Friday. And every day you're selecting, then you have to listen, you have to review, and you know, you really want to create a certain vibe. And what's important for me is the rhythm, it's the melody and the lyrics. I don't just play any and anything. So it is time consuming. And I can imagine if you're playing out and having to sort out what music, and you never know what music to play, you never know if somebody's going to ask you to play a track. So you always have to be prepared just in case. And that takes time, and that's a lot of work.
You also run a store, yeah, in the market?
I used to run a store. That's going to go online though. I had a tea shop in Luton Market, but the location wasn't great.
Right.
And I just found that after a while, you know, it just wasn't cost effective to run it that way.
When you say tea, you mean?
Herbal tea.
Herbal tea, yeah.
And I customize them and make them myself. So if somebody came in and said they had a particular ailment, I'd research it, and then I'd make the tea to kind of help, or it's not cure,
right?
Help.
Along the lines of alkaline and stuff, because we was talking about that just before. You came
Yeah, well, it all depends. When it's alkaline, they're much more harder to make. So I just buy the herbs. So I've got stacks of herbs for all different conditions. And so, you know, if somebody's got high blood pressure or, you know, what else? Lots of different things. Like somebody came in and they had parasites. And it never occurred to me that somebody could have parasites and worms. But this particular person had parasites and worms. And when she came into the shop, she was all kind of crouched over. And I remember thinking, oh my God, it's a big responsibility taking that on. But I researched it and I got all these herbs and I made some teas, and she had to have some kidney supplements in order so it didn't damage her kidneys. But you know, the next time she came in, I think it was 4 weeks later, she's done up and she looked drunk. You know what I mean? So she was good. I was really pleased. It's not something I'm going to say, oh my goodness, I'm going to do this, but just to see how it can benefit individuals. And the one cap doesn't fit everyone, but that particular individual, it worked.
So you said you're going to go to online now.
Yeah, I'll go on to online.
Yeah.
You know, I'm giving it a little break because I did it for just over a year.
Right.
I'll give it a little break because I want to open up it's TIHTK, so a ticker shop similar to Costco. Is it Costco? Not Costco. You know,
Costa.
these Costa, yeah, Costa Coffee. I'd like ideally to have one of those, you know, in the town centre where people could come and sit down and have their herbal teas.
Okay.
And yeah, so ideally that would be nice. But at the moment, I'm just concentrating on the music. And
do you want to mention the name of the online? Have you got it yet? Do you want to mention the name of?
No, I haven't got it yet. I bought the website, but I haven't got it set up yet.
All right. Okay.
I'll let you know when I do.
All right. Thank you. Well, Pharaoh, you got a question?
Hello. Yeah. Hi. Thanks for introducing yourself to us. I just wanted to ask, what do you think is the state of Black literature and of Black art in general in the world? Well, especially in the two countries that you've stayed in, Britain and America, which are you know, some of the countries that hold a lot of very successful Black people. So what do you think is the state of literature? Where are we going as a people? Is the literature of today relevant for tomorrow, or do we have to adopt digital issues? What do we need to do, in your own opinion?
I think people need to be honest, number one. But what happens is that with literature, just like with any piece of material, it's going to be censored. So the only way forward is if people are allowed to speak the truth. And a lot of people, as you know, history has been hidden, it's been amended, it's been changed. So until we can have freedom of speech and people can write all over the world about their honest experiences, and when people are not ashamed of their experiences, and then, you know, they're not afraid, they've got courage enough to write. And I mean, normally those people, they probably need a lot of money to back them up, because no matter what people try to do, there's some system in place to prevent it from happening. But like I said, it takes unity, that even though that word is overused, but it does take unity, and it does take vigilance and determination. And of course, education and knowledge and all of those things in order to bring it all together. And I think if all over the world, you know, writers and artists were to do that, just be honest with themselves and put aside all this superficial stuff and the materialism and that kind of stuff, then they can, I think the world would be a much more educated place, and it will move towards being a better place.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You mentioned education, and as we know, the school systems are kind of structured not to really educate us as properly as Black people. Whose responsibility do you think it is, in your opinion, for us as Black people to be educated?
I think it's now fast becoming an individual responsibility. I think that if you rely on the system, I mean, we have to go through the system. You can't really avoid it. And even those who are homeschooling, there's so much scrutiny involved when it comes to education that you have to use that as a platform. And then you build on that education. I don't think there's any excuse for people not to be educated these days. There's so many sources, but it's knowing what is the correct source. And because there's so many sources, you can still be misled. So I have a rule of thumb that if I read the same material 3 or 4 times from 3 or 4 different sources, and it says the same thing, I'll more or less say, okay, I'll go with that. And that will be my education. And I think individuals have to become responsible for themselves with regard to education. You can't rely on anyone else. And I mean, they used to have black schools, Saturday schools, that stopped. And it'd be really great to see them come back again. If it's black education you're looking for, or it could be global education, it all depends. But the world is your oyster, Google, and even though they're kind of going to get your information and it's very difficult and you're kind of caught up in the system, you can still use it to your advantage and educate yourself through it.
Where do you think someone would start if they was going to educate themselves? What do you think would be the most valuable piece of education someone could start with?
That's a difficult one because it really depends on the subjects of education. It could be, I mean, we start from our parents, the elders, but now we've got elders that are so screwed up that, you know, they cannot be mentors anymore. So I think depending on what it is you want to be educated about, you have a coach, you have a mentor, you have somebody who you respect. And that can be, it could be your parents, but if they're not the people in your life who are going to give you the best advice, you look for people in your circle who can facilitate your dream or your education, whoever that can be, regardless of nationality, gender, whoever can assist you on your journey and educate you. That's where you get your education from. Sometimes education is just through experience.
Yes, true. Because in school, in my school days, I really didn't learn anything at all. Really, I just was very, I was wayward because I says what I was being taught wasn't really computing at all. Like, you know, so it was like a stomping of the mind, like numbing of the brain. That's how I see it. You know what I'm saying? But I says, and you're right, as you said, experience, like, you know, it's not only when you leave school, that's when you start to learn about life and everything like that, you know, and you take it from experience, definitely. Learn from
experience is definitely the best educator. It's a hard way to learn.
Yes.
But it's definitely the best educator. You can try and teach other people, but sometimes they're stubborn, they don't want to hear, they don't want to know, and until they experience it themselves, that's the only way they can learn. But like I said, it all depends on the subject. If you're talking about academic subjects, then you really have to just read up, go to the library and, you know, find your sources from there.
Say your education, say your experiences are limited, because we live in a world like what you talked before, where the odds are against us as a Black nation. And so the access to education, if you've not had that experience and, you know, you want to improve yourself, it's like, where do you start if you haven't got that experience? You know,
can you give me an example?
So, for example, say like what that other gentleman was talking about when he talked about he grew up in school and he had limited education in his school, and then he struggled in that way. So there's no kind of starting point for somebody that if you haven't really got the education even from school. So you say you lack just the basic kind of knowledge. Not saying that he does, but you know, so a lot, I think, like if I give myself an example, when I first started, I didn't feel like I could do anything but do care work. And then there wasn't people around me that I could get experience from, and I lacked experience within myself. So I felt that was all I could do. What I'm saying is, you know, I found it really hard, because if you don't have the pointers to where to go, then you won't even know where to go to get that education, because it's almost like there's keywords or jargon if you're looking to improve yourself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. It is difficult, but that's why it would have to take self-motivation, I think. That individual would have to want to find out for his or herself. How did you did you get over that, your limited knowledge? Did you get over that not knowing anything?
I did.
But and how did you do that?
I think through, like what you said, I guess it was through other people. I did a lot of research. And I think when I was researching, so I would start, say, researching history. And then that would lead me on to, I remember reading about the whitewashing, when they whitewashed all of the Black artistry, and, you know, Black history was, they covered it over. Then I found out about museums. Then I found out about Africa. And then, you know, each section that I went to, I started finding out about something new. But I was thinking, if you wanted a starting point, it's like for somebody that doesn't know how to research, because research is quite difficult to do if you don't know how to do it properly. So I was thinking, for somebody that didn't know how to do that, where would be the best starting point for them?
Well, I think how you explained your journey, that is what that's why I said somebody would have to be self-motivated. I mean, when I was young, we didn't have YouTube. And I'm not saying everything on YouTube is correct, it's not. But you can learn a hell of a lot off of YouTube. And so people can use that starting point, but they have to be self-motivated. They have to want to learn. And if you want to learn, and if you want to find out things, you will, something inside you will propel you to do that. So as with regard to starting point, I think in this day and age, it would be YouTube.
Right. So if someone says something and you have a burning and you feel that you have questions about it and you want to find out about it more, then you actually go on YouTube for that, don't you? Well, YouTube, you actually do your research on that, don't you?
Well, to be honest, I personally don't go to YouTube. That's the irony of it, because I'm not quite sure. I mean, if I want to know how to fix my laptop or something like that, then I'll go to YouTube if I want to find out how to do something.
Yeah.
But if I want information, I go to the written word, and I'll go to research papers and you know, papers that have got some kind of summary. So I'll read up on that kind of thing, and I'll use different newspapers, and I mostly use government information because that's the most reliable. Anything to do with the government, you know, if I'm in terms of what I do when I'm vlogging, I can't afford to just go to places like YouTube or the newspaper. I use the newspapers as a platform, and I use information that people send me as a platform. But I tend to go through either immigration solicitors platforms and government websites or civil advice bureaus and solicitors, and I tend to get my information from there if I'm going to do a video. So I don't know if that answers your question.
You cross-reference then your information?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Because you seem quite an inquisitive person. Still, have you always been inquisitive?
Yeah, I didn't know I was inquisitive. I don't know if it's inquisitive or skeptical.
Right.
I think I'm more skeptical than I'm inquisitive, but I do have, once I find one thing and I have to find out more about it. So yeah, I guess that is, they call it professional curiosity, I think.
Okay. Anybody else with a question? No.
Okay.
Hold on. Sydney, go ahead, brother.
Thank you very much for coming to talk to us, Lady Loy. You've led a very interesting life, and I was wondering about your position at the United Nations. What role was that? What was the name of the role you had?
I was a personnel officer.
Personnel officer.
Yeah.
Okay, because you had mentioned you'd traveled to Africa and.
Oh, that's totally different. The two things are unrelated. Any staff member can apply to go on a mission, even non-staff members. Anybody, not so much now, but back then, anybody could fill up an application form and go and help on a mission. So that didn't have anything to do with my day job.
Okay. Yeah, and I don't know if I can ask another question about your authoring work and how you build your stories up. What would be the process one would take to start, for example, writing a book?
Well, number one, it all depends whether or not it's factual or whether it's fiction. That would be your first standpoint. But for me, I tend to write based on experiences. So it's much easier for me. What I tend to do is I record experiences. And when I wrote my first book, I didn't intend to write a book, but what I was doing is I was documenting everything that happened while I was in Jamaica, because I was there by myself. It was a holiday and I love writing. And I used to send what I call a diary to my daughter in England. And every day she said, "Oh, that's so funny, Myrna, you've got to write a book." Anyway, by the end of the 2 weeks, I had enough information to write my first book. And so the first book was really my experiences of every day. So if you're writing a book in any other way, you'd have to, number one, be very familiar with the subject. Otherwise, it can be quite laborious. And it's really about persistence and just going at it every day. When I start something, I'm at it all the time. I don't stop until I've finished. And that's why, unless I've got time, I don't start something. But if I can allot a couple of weeks to write a book, because that's usually how long it takes me, I'll do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can I ask, is it the same sort of process with the poetry books then?
Poetry books is even easier. It's almost like it's a natural thing. It's very synergistic. It's almost like if I have a thought, or if somebody asks me to write a poem about anything, like I used to get paid for doing a poem for particular events, but they come so naturally, very unlabored.
Okay.
It's just like, I was born to be a poet.
So the process though of constructing the book,
yeah, but I think my process would be different because it's in me.
Right.
It's not labored. I don't have to think of the words. I don't have to think about making them rhyme. I don't have to think about the process at all. It just happens. Give me a paper and a pen and it will happen.
It will happen.
Yeah.
Well,
so it's very difficult.
Yeah, I mean, getting that book out there, like, what's the process?
Oh, do you mean the publishing process?
Yeah.
Oh, that is very laborious.
Right.
And it's quite long. And the only reason I published my first book was because I went on an art project, and the person who was facilitating the art project wanted me to pay him a couple of £1,000 to publish the book and give him royalties. So I thought to myself, £1,000? I ain't paying you £1,000. I'm sure I can do it myself. And so I just researched each step. And yes, it's very time consuming, but it's very rewarding. And I can understand why people do charge a lot of money But once you've got the hang of it, it's not that difficult. I mean, you have to register it with ALCS, you know, the British Library, and there's a lot of processes. It's much easier now because if you have a book and you don't want to go through all of that, you can do it through Amazon. They don't charge you. The only thing is the royalties are practically nothing, but at least they do the shipping. They publish it for you as long as you've got the manuscript.
They publish it for you.
Oh yeah, and it's all
Okay.
free. Well, when I say free, they rake it back through the, you know, by giving you a pittance out of what you sell, unless you sell thousands and thousands. But all I'm saying, I'm only saying that as an option because it doesn't have to be difficult anymore. You don't have to get a publisher unless, you know, you really believe in your book and you believe somebody's going to do all that for you and all the marketing. The thing is with Amazon, they don't do the marketing. You have to do the marketing yourself.
Right.
So there are advantages to get in a, you know, a bona fide publisher.
Okay. That's good to know for all those budding poets.
Yeah.
Who wants to write a poetry book? Oh, that's good. Anybody else?
Yeah.
Just going back on the book thing, and you said about Amazon, do they own the royalties or the rights to your book, or do you still keep that if you give it to them?
You still keep the rights. And yeah, I think all they take, you can kind of sign up for 10% of royalties, 33%. They have a breakdown of what you can, what they take from you. But yeah, all the copyright is yours. You don't lose that.
Okay. That's a good question. So,
yeah.
Mark, did you have something to say?
Yeah, back to the music. No, back to the music. So a couple of weeks ago, we had Love Light on their Love Light sound system. They were talking about the state of the dancehall and reggae in general. What's your thoughts, you know, of the state of reggae music and dancehall at the moment? Like, you know, obviously since the rise of Afro beats and you know, reggae not really having a Billboard chart anymore and those sort of things. What's your take on the situation?
I think that's where DJs, especially radio DJs, it'd be great if we could actually create a Billboard chart, which we don't have, and I'm not quite sure how that's done, but that's quite an interesting point. But I think dancehall, they've got positive dancehall and then they've got the negative dancehall. So, you know, I don't touch the negative dancehall, the one with all the cursing in it and all that stuff. But they do have some good dancehall, and I think we have so many good artists out there. And whether it's dancehall or whether it's Afrobeat, I think we have to continue to promote the artists because their own people, like especially in Jamaica, I think they charge them an arm and a leg for their music to be heard. I mean, in England, we don't charge them when we promote their music. And I think it's important that artists, especially new artists, are exposed a bit more. So I think the state of reggae music, I think it's growing. I think it's very, very hard to come up with a new idea because it's all been exhausted, what's been done already, but people are still doing it. And I think it's forcing people to do something different. And I think it'd be great if we had a reggae Billboard chart. I might look into how you can do that. Actually, you might have given me an idea.
Well, there used to be the chart where I was supposed to, it used to be the Echo chart and things like that.
What happened to all of that?
I ain't got a clue. You know, I think it went away when record shops went, I suppose. It sort of disappeared then. Because
we don't even have, I mean, in America, they've got the Billboard chart still. But do we have the equivalent in the UK at all for any other music?
Well, Billboard have charts. So what they did do, there was a reggae Billboard chart. Like there was a hip hop one, a Latin one. And a couple of years ago, because of the low sales of reggae, they just thought they'll just do away with it.
Didn't HMV have something to do with
replaced it?
No.
No. This is Billboard in America we're talking about. Billboard's the most influential chart, isn't it? So they done away with the reggae chart and they've replaced it with the Afrobeat one. So a lot of people are saying that actually reggae and dancehall is on a downward spiral and Afrobeat is basically replacing.
Well, Afrobeat is definitely, you know, becoming a front runner now. But I don't think it helps that, you know, there's hardly any record shops. People aren't going buying. Everything is a free download or 79p or whatever. It's how are the artists supposed to survive? You know, when you can get their music so easily, and you don't even have to. You can either listen to it or watch it on YouTube. So I don't know how they can make money now.
I think they make money from like tours and shows, but as you were talking about the reggae artists, I think the problem with the reggae artists is not that we're not listening to the music, but the music is recycled, isn't it? 'Cause like Lovers Rock, those musics was made years ago, so people have them, and when we go to the dances, they're just played on repeat, but they're quite successful. But then you got the new music like the Afro beats, but that's kind of for the younger people who won't know about the old Lovers Rock or even understand it or even know that it exists. Do you see what I mean? So that's what I think they're dealing with.
But the thing is, the problem when we're talking about artists and even the Lovers Rock, they weren't ever paid. They were paid a one-off sum. So none of those artists are benefiting. So you can pay Janet Kay and all of them not all night. They're not going to get no royalties. They're not going to get nothing from you playing that music. And that is a problem with all of those older artists. I mean, I interviewed Dawn Penn on Friday, and she was talking about, you know, a lot of the artists are not protected, or they don't do what they need to do to protect themselves. And if they don't do that, they're not making any money. And you, in order to make money, you have to be able to write your own music and compose your own music. So it's no point going out there and doing covers, and then the older artists, they're not benefiting from people playing their music. So Lovers Rock is a prime example.
They're not collecting that. They're not getting.
They're not collecting their dues. They can't. Yeah, it's such a shame.
Back then, a lot of the artists would get a one-off money, like you said, and that was it.
Yeah.
Got a contract to sign, not really knowing what they're signing.
And they were just glad to sing. I mean, most people, I think, if you had a voice, you just want to sing, and you don't even think about it. You just think, oh yeah, I'm on TV, or you know, I'm playing at a club, and you're not going to think about the money at that time or protecting your music.
I would like to have the mind of a Michael Jackson or whatever is what he was saying. He was very astute with his business-wise, very astute.
Very astute, yes.
No one can tell him what to do.
Exactly.
But he was a man that was in it from he was a child, innit? He saw it, you know? He got a good glimpse at it as a child. Yeah. And was aware that in the time he was coming up, he was aware of how many other singers that was out there not really getting what was theirs. So yeah, I think he had a different perspective for sure.
And I think those who have the guidance and who have that professional expertise around them, they fare much better than those who didn't.
But do you think the reason why people are signing contracts willy-nilly without thinking is because it because of the people who approach them? They accept the first offer or whatever, like, or are they probably afraid that they might get rejected, you know, of what they're doing? Like, you know, they want to actually have their thing. They want to have their project, you know, out there so much that they accept, you know, any offer that comes to them on the table.
I think that's what happens, especially if you are a new artist. You know, somebody comes along and you don't realize your own value. A lot of these artists, they don't realize their own value. And so when somebody, like you said, comes along and says, look, I'm going to give you £1,000 for, you know, this music or this song, and you're going to think, you know, you haven't got any money, or depending on what £1,000 means to you, you're going to think, oh yeah, I'm going to do that. Yeah, I'll sign this contract for 1,000, or maybe if, say about £5,000 might be more attractive. And you know, they'd sell their soul for £1,000 or £5,000, and it is because they become desperate, especially if they can't get seen, or they're just about to give up and there's an opportunity and they don't realize they're being exploited. We're living in a world where there's so much deceit and people are just out to exploit people. And when people are out to exploit people, the naive are the ones that get caught in the net. So, and that's what's been happening to musicians from memorial. You know, you've got people like Slim Smith, and I was looking at the Silvertones on Facebook the other day. They were brilliant artists back in the day. They're poor, they've got no shoes on their feet. You know, they've got no teeth, they can't do any, you know, they're just about hobbling and still trying to sing. None of them are rewarded, and it's because of the same thing. They get desperate, they just want to get something. And depending on when the person approaches them, depending on where they are in their life, whether they're down and out, depressed, or, you know, whether they're upbeat and they decide to refuse the first offer, I think, you know, that's what causes it.
Cool. Fario, you be the last question. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, just on the subject of music, I just want to bring to your attention when you talk about reggae and dancehall and all that decline is on. Well, in Africa, where I come from, especially the country that I come from, reggae is not dying. If we talk about reggae dying, let's talk about in the Western world where there is just so much music going on. But the influence of reggae music and dancehall music, especially in the part of the world where I come from, it's not dying. There's a whole genre of music in my country called Zim dancehall, where people
we're not saying it's dying with Faro. What we're saying is that the artists are not being paid for their songs. And I went to Burning Spear and Horace Andy and Johnny Clark on Saturday, on Sunday. And they was packed. I think there must be over 6,000 people there. And the organisers must have made £1 million there on Sunday. But how much are those artists going to be paid? If they get £5,000, they'll be happy, but they should be getting like 10 grand. You see what I mean? So they're not adequately rewarded. So yes, that's what I meant.
Oh, just to add on to that though, on the last point, do you know how about collaborations? I mean, because yes, we understand how West African music, because when you say Afrobeat, it's not all music from Africa that's getting the limelight. I mean, we get music from South Africa. Well, not just all of South Africa. A certain part of South Africa that's getting the Afrobeat label. We've got music from certain countries in West Africa that they've become genuinely known as Afrobeats, but there's music from Somalia, from Malawi, there's musicians from everywhere, Namibia, there's music from everywhere. So just as a last point, something to think about is that maybe it would help if there is a deliberate effort for musicians from the Caribbean and African music, so that they can, you know, because if you look at it, a lot of those what are now called Afrobeat musicians, they've got a lot of dancehall influence. They grew up in dancehall and all that, you know, the attitude they carry, the culture they try to portray, what. It's got a dancehall influence in it. So perhaps something like collaboration. I'll just give you one last point when you talk about artists being paid. When a Jamaican artist come to my country to play, they don't get nothing less than $10,000. So there are places where Jamaican artists go, they ask them, and a Beanie Man, they come all the time. They get paid shitloads of money. And to a point where some of our local artists, they start complaining that why you pay Beanie Man? Because I mean, they are that big. So there are places I think where we can have deliberate conversations about how we can, you know, do collaborations and how we can do. There's quite a lot of things we can do actually. Maybe when time permits, whatever. But yeah, I mean, I'll risk it on that.
Yeah, I think just to put some perspective in that, yeah, Beanie Man and all these new artists, they are the ones who are protecting their work. They know the run-ins. But we were talking, when we were talking about not being adequately rewarded, we were talking about lovers rock artists, those ones, rock steady artists, the ones from way back 1960s, 1970s. They're the ones who weren't getting rewarded or paid properly for the work that they've done. But the new artists, yeah, they can command quite a bit. But thank you everyone for your questions.
Thank you so much for your time, Lady Loy. Well, much appreciated, you know. I give thanks everybody for popping in. You know, we're gonna wrap it up about now. So yeah, once again, thanks a lot.
Okay, Lady Di, is that your angle? Is that your angle on your radio station?
Yeah, it's www.loversrockradio.com, and it's every Friday from 7 o'clock until 9 o'clock in the evening.
Yeah.
And if you miss it, you can catch me on Mixcloud, Lady Loy.
Thank you.
Everybody, make sure you log in and support.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's
log in
right.
and support, yeah.
Strength for
thanks
strength.
coming
Yeah.
on, Lady Loy, respect.
Okay.
Thank you so
Thanks a
much.
lot.
Okay then, so bye-bye and thank you, and all have a safe evening, yeah?